Good morning. Today we are dealing with only one topic, and that is transgender. We have heard of transgender because this comes in the LGBT as the last T, and when you expand that T, it becomes transgender. You have to know it in detail to judge them because we have been judging them wrongly for a long time. They have been fighting for their own existentialism, and they have been fighting for their rights for a long time. Theories based on the transgender were in fashion now, and it has become so popular that people who are studying transgender about this transgender use those theories. So we will have to go to these theories and the history of transgender and why they are called as transgender in detail. Because transgender is a person who believes that they are trapped in the wrong body. They are born maybe as a male who thinks that he or she is actually a woman and the body is not theirs. That kind of feeling makes them transform or transition from a male to a female. Such persons we call as transgender. Let's go to the slides and see the points that are connected to transgender, and why we call them the name, and what are the issues that are connected to their life and the problems they face, and how they are accepted or rejected by the world, and who are against them and who are for them. Okay, shall we move on to the slides? Let's begin our class. This is class 4 of the methodology of literature, and we have gone through the various marginalized groups, and one such group is transgender. As I've told you in the introduction, they are a category of people who believe that they are trapped in a wrong body due to a medical problem and converts, mind you, it is in single inverted commas, converts to the opposite sex by an operation. Because they need to change into what they feel, and this is why they convert to the opposite sex, and that is possible only through a medical operation. Let's see the type of people who come under the title transgender. Transsexual, transvestites, or cross-dresser means a person who dresses in the opposite sex's dress, and such people are called transvestites. And gender queer, androgyne, and bigender. All these people come under transgender identities. Let's see what gender identity means. It is one's personal sense of being a man or a woman. It is that we call as gender identity. You are born as a man or a woman. Then what is meant by transgender identity? It is a fixed sexual orientation, and even in that you find that there are the androphilic, gynophilic, bisexual, or asexual. Androphilic means maybe a desire for or attracted to men. Attracted to women we call as gynophilic. Attracted to both means both men and women we call as bisexual, or attracted to neither means to neither man or woman, we call them as asexual. Again, you find that in the world, people take sides. Janice Raymond wrote a book called The Transsexual Empire, and then again Sheila Jeffrey wrote another book called Gender Hurts, a feminist analysis of the politics of transgenderism. In these two books, you find the writers vehemently criticizing transgenders. They think that transsexualism is a rape on the female body, and that is according to Janice Raymond. Again, Sheila Jeffrey feels that trans women are constructing a conservative fantasy of what women should be. So, both these writers wrote and argued against transgenderism or transgenders, and they are either feminists or homosexuals or lesbians. So naturally, they feel that this is not going to be something that is acceptable. You have Julie Bindel being critical of the transition from one gender to the other via a medical operation, because she feels that the transition from one gender to the other is in the context of a gendered critic, and naturally you find that they are critical of transgenders. It is in this connection that the transgenders attempted to be responsible and responsive. So, this gendered critic of lesbian feminists moved transgenderism towards an attempt to the responsible and responsive. You have already seen earlier that some feminists were totally against transgender or transgenderism, and naturally, transgenders retorted back saying that they are against only the patriarchy. But for these people, for transgenders, it is a question of being in the margins or not being in the margins. They would like to be in the mainstream or the society to accept them. And it is for this they started fighting. And they retorted back. Sometimes it was vehement also. And so naturally, there was a feeling against them in the world, even from the part of feminists who were vehemently fighting for their liberation. And it is they who refuse to be to be any feel any understanding towards transgenderism. You find literature of the transgender aiming at the correction of the historical devaluation experienced by the transgenders. Transgenders, like the Dalits, feel that they are not taken into account. They are most often marginalized, and naturally, these really, in a way, prompted them to speak for themselves. Some of them wrote their autobiography, some of them wrote their experiences, and it is that which made them uh, be recognized in the world as people who are really worthy of being acceptable or being employable or being in the mainstream. Why did the transgenders react vehemently against people? Sometimes they are so aggressive or so they retaliated. And why was it so? This question was there in the mind of the people. For a long time, this was so because society refused to accept transgenderism, and society for a long time was against feminism, and that society moved and changed, and changes were brought into the forefront after years of fighting. But no, this was not the case with transgenders. Some of them had to undergo serious operations, as a result of which the cost was too much, and the pain that they suffered, everything was for something that they believed in. And even then, they felt segregation and discrimination. Nobody accepted a friend who is a transgender. Or you can't say that you have a friend who is a transgender, can you? Nowadays maybe, but maybe 10 years back, if you ask anyone, you will find that these people were discriminated or segregated, and nobody even worth talking to ever spoke to them, or if they were spoken to, it was in a mocking manner or in a derogatory manner. And also the discrimination, because if a transgender is sitting in a bus, if you are a girl, you refuse to sit there. If you are a boy, if the transgender is dressed in the clothes of a man, maybe he will sit next to that person. Even then, he may think twice if there is another option. So, that kind of discrimination was there in society. Then again, poverty and unfortunate living condition. As a result of poverty, unfortunate living conditions for these people. Poverty because they are not employed as either man or a woman, or as a girl or a man or a young man, because they do not believe, or they do not belong to any of these classes. They are trapped in a body which is not of their thinking. This is why I said earlier that they feel that they are born as a male and with the sexual organs, but their whole mind and their attitude, everything is towards a woman, or like a woman. And this is why they undergo the painful operation, and sometimes they can't. So, this kind of behavior naturally makes them unemployable. And even in a society where you have a lot of jobs from the government jobs, even then, if you write a transgender in maybe 10 years or 20 years back, you are not employed. You have to write either you are a man or a woman, male or female. So, as a result of which, very few people employed them, and that too, they were paid low wages. So, naturally, they had to suffer poverty. And as a result of this poverty, there is the unfortunate living conditions. Sometimes they become they are attacked by other people, and maybe at times they have to fight for their own self-preservation. And again, there is the corruption of the legal system. Corruption of the legal system which refuses to recognize the norm of being a transgender, because rules have to be made for them, and rules have to be shaped, or new rules have to be made for this group of people, because the generally the law is for a man and a woman, or a human being as such. And so, because they do not belong to any of this category, that is neither a man or a woman, there is no legal law, or there is no legal terms to describe them, or even to argue for them. So again, there is the corruption of this legal system, as a result of which they refuse to change that, saying that it is not acceptable. So naturally, this was something they can't fight against any people. They can't take a suit against other people as transgender. So naturally, all these made them pushed to the margin, and they were like the other people, like the Dalit, in the margins. Then again, you find Susan Stryker's evaluation for the reasons for the retaliation of the transgenders, why they were so aggressive, why they retaliated in their own way. All these can be taken to understand the attitude of the transgenders. Like the gay and lesbians, they also decided to come out in search of democratic legal rights. When we learned feminism, we have learned that there was a rule which says that a woman just cannot vote, and the women were not considered as responsible people, and so they cannot be elected as representatives, nor can they vote. And now, several years back, now we are enjoying the freedom to vote, and also equality in almost all fields of life. And this had to be fought every inch by the people all over the world, not just in England, but in America, Europe, and all the other countries. And it started spreading to the other countries too. So, like the gay and lesbians, transgenders also decided to come out in search of democratic legal rights, because they felt that if feminists, or the gay and less from feminism, You find gay and lesbians coming out, and they depend on the theory of Freud and Foucault. And by those theories, they show that there is a possibility for them to exist in this world, and there is a possibility that human beings can be uh, gay or lesbians. Likewise, transgenders also decided to come out in search of democratic legal rights. You find a book called The Transgender Studies Reader, published in 2006 by Susan Stryker and Stephen Whittle, and Transgender History by Stryker. So, the Transgender Studies Reader by Susan Stryker and Stephen Whittle is a book which analyzes the connection between feminism, queer theory, and medical sciences about the body and desires of transgenders. In a way, these two books are fully supportive of transgenders. Maybe it has to wait till 2006 in order to get published. And these books gave a light to the readers as to what is meant by transgenderism and how you find a connection between feminism, queer theory, and medical sciences and about the body and desire of transgenders. In a way, they are analyzing all these aspects of transgenderism. And this is helpful to any person who is interested in transgender studies. Again, you have transgender history of Stryker that also gives us an insight into the idea of what it is to be a transgender and how their life had been and the fight that they had been going on with and how they retaliated at times without no aim at all, but at the same time they were fighting for their existence. The second book, The History, is about gender which is now conformity treated as an illness following pathological symptoms, an evaluation of the backlash against transgenderism in relation to the massive spread of AIDS among these people. So here it is about gender, and it is treated as an illness following the pathological symptoms. And so naturally, you find that the people, an evaluation of the backlash against transgenderism. Why did people treat transgenders in such a manner? One main reason is that it is these people had, a lot of them had AIDS as a result of their sexual habits, and so these people were regarded as people who spread AIDS among the people, among the others. So these people were put to one side. Maybe it was true in its own way, but there are a lot of others who would like to lead a proper life and not be treated as sexual toys by others. So it is a kind of an illness, more than a kind of an illness, which has pathological symptoms, which is to be treated. There was a backlash against them, against transgenderism, by the other gender, and the massive spread of AIDS totally delineated transgenders from society. So it was almost impossible for them to stand on their own 2 feet and fight for their own rules or their own existence. And even now in our country, when the transgenders started explaining themselves, you find that it is much, much late in coming to Kerala or even to our own place. But it is there because they really proclaimed that we are here to stay and we are human beings. And you find accommodation separate for them, and that is in a way beneficial to them because they are not hurting any other people, and as a group they will be able to have to share their own woes and their own happiness if there is any, and also in a way share whatever that the problems are in their life. So that gives them a unity and makes them feel that they can also lead a life like a human being and need not be treated as something not like a human being, and so they can be in society and also live decently in the society, and it is that which they desire. So the total reaction of the people against transgenders, one main reason was that they are the people who spread AIDS. This is indeed true for a long time. People believed that, and it is also true to a certain extent because maybe of their sexual habits. But even then, these people had taken the pain to undergo the surgery in order to be the person that they believe they are, and not the person that was trapped in a body that they don't want. So you find here a totally different aspect of not feminism, but a totally different aspect. It is not like feminism. It is not like gay or being lesbian. It is your own body, and you are doing what you feel is right with your body, irrespective of the fact that you are born a male or a female. So if you feel that you are a male, you are a woman trapped in the male body, then you can have the corrective surgery. It is expensive, but at the same time, the surgeons are doing it now in all parts of the world, and they undergo that. And a lot of expense is there for that. In spite of that, those expenses, the transgenders undergo such an operation. Why do they do that? If they are that poor and if they don't have much income, why do they go for that? Because they feel that they are totally uncomfortable in the male body, and so they would like to be free of that body. And you can't do anything about that but except do the corrective surgery and be a woman and be free as such and enjoy your life as a woman. So it is that which makes them go to these lengths to find their own self in such a manner, and maybe with the help of medicine they were able to do that. Again, you find that there are books written by people who had gone this corrective surgery and their transformation from a male to a female. They have written it. They have written their experiences as a book. And the first one is uh, titled I Am Vidya, a Transgender's Journey. The second, The Girl's Life, My Erotic Journey from Male to Female. Both these books explore the transition from a male body to a female body, because it is they who can write in detail about this and how they have existed in the male body with the female emotions, and how they started behaving like a female, dressed in a male clothes or male dress, and also with the male sexual organs. Even then they are behaving like a female. So this life, this kind of life was totally uncomfortable to them, and this is why they have decided, or they put on the feeling that they are not in the right mode, and naturally they really wanted to be comfortable with what they feel. They feel that they are actually women and they don't want their male body, and you can't just remove that male body all by yourself. You have to undergo the surgery, and only then you can be a female. People who had undergone such a surgery had written their experiences, a transgender's journey, in the sense that as a male or in a male body living as a male but thinking and feeling like a female, and how it attracts the attention of the people, the wrong kind of attention maybe, and whatever that they have suffered throughout that, and from that corrective surgery to the present life, and how happy they are being a female. And it is that journey that is described in the book I Am Vidya, a Transgender's Journey. Then the second book also, that is The Girl's Life, My Erotic Journey from Male to Female. The title is really erotic, but at the same time the suffering of these people and how they had tried and fought for their existence or their life is something that you have to read and understand. So these two books are really famous now, and it explains how these transgenders feel on being there for a long time, trapped in this body and being tormented by other people, and maybe dressing totally different, like maybe like a girl, and that again had must have a lot of it must have invited a lot of comments and mockery from maybe their classmates and their friends or their neighbors, and even by the family members. So all these they had suffered, but once they grew up, when their sexuality develops, naturally it is not developed towards the male but towards the female. And so you find that they had to move away from the already living place and find a job or to find a group which will have more sympathy with them. And it is that they are trying to find in this world. They are recognized throughout the world now as a group, transgenders, and they are also treated as such. And naturally, they also have started behaving like ordinary people, going for jobs, getting paid for the job, and leading a life that is like any other human being, and not being ill treated by other people. And they now can decently live, as I told you, respect. They have respect in the society now, and they are not treated as people who spreads AIDS, but they are people who had undergone a corrective surgery, but at the same time they are also human beings. This kind of attitude change is brought about by their fight for existence, and this is indeed true to a great extent that it is being a great success. Then you find that literary and cultural theory rejects anti-essentialism. That is, the transgenders bring back a kind of essentialism. That is a form of identity politics that is often characteristic features of minority discourses. So people believe that by the assertion that one is trapped in a wrong body and bring back a kind of essentialism for a form of identity politics. And this in turn is the feature of the minority discourses. And I hope you remember the title of the broad title of our section, and that is marginalization. And when you learn about transgenders, you find that they are marginalized group and now belong to the minority discourse. And naturally, this is why transgenderism is included here. Again, to these underprivileged categories, the public display of identity is the only course of action in the fight for justice. They are indeed underprivileged categories, and the public display of identity means they have to come to the forefront and fight for their rights, or only then people will recognize them. They understood that this is why they had put before the world whatever that they feel, and they do not have any theory to support them like the gay and the lesbians had. No theory or no scientists ever prove that their existence or their change in manner is possible or it could be done or anything like that, except maybe in the epics or the great Puranas. So here you find transgenders at a loose end with no one to support in the world and nothing to really adhere to, and still they continued fighting. As I told you, they are indeed the minority, and they are people who belong to the marginalized, and there is nothing to support them except their own utter belief that they are what they are not born to. So, this is something that they have to establish before the world. Only then the world will accept them. And this is exactly the reason why they believe that the question of the identity kind of, that is, they believe that this is a kind of essentialism, and all the literary and cultural theories reject anti-essentialism. And so you find transgenders bringing back a kind of essentialism. That is, their existence in the world is also part of a plan, and they are also necessary or essential to this world, and they cannot be ignored as they had been for a long, long time. And of identity politics, because you are born as a man or a woman, and if you are a gay or a lesbian doesn't matter. There are scientists who support that theory. That is, there is the nature in a human being to be gay or the same sex love, and a man's love for a man and a woman's love for a woman, lesbian. All these can be possible, but when it comes to transgenderism, there is no theory to support them. And so this kind of an identity politics existed and made them really feel that they have to form an identity of their own, and it is to be accepted by the world as such. And more than that, it should be accepted as a theory to be learned as a part of literature. This is why the autobiography I Am Vidya, A Transgender's Journey, The Girl's Life, My Erotic Journey from Male to Female, all this become part of literature. And we have to have certain norms to be accepted as literature. And we have to have these norms, and those norms are fulfilled by the transgenders. And they, whatever the reasons are, they really satisfy the question of essentialism, and it is now a feature of minority discourse. So, because it is a feature of the minority discourse, it is accepted in literature, and you find that you have a lot of theories to, or you can really read through them, and also the writings of transgenders, personal experiences. And these personal experiences are so truthful that you feel an affinity towards these people and also think about them. They are also another group of people, and we have to accept them in society and do not set them apart or discriminate against them. And this is exactly what the transgenders wanted for a long time. So transgenderism is also included in the teachings, in the literature, and also in all the other social studies and everything. And naturally, this becomes a part of the discourse, that is minority discourse. You have come through the LGBT studies, and uh, we have the people who had been, that is, people who are feminists, gay, lesbian, and even the transgenders. So, all these people are included under the term, the short form LGBT, and we have learned a lot about them, and we have understood that whatever that is spoken for them is true to a great extent, and we rejoice in the way the world had come to accept them. But we have also learned the fight that they have been going through all their life, and even the next generation and the next generation, they have taken it up. And in a way, all these have paved the way for a better living for the gay, lesbian, and also for transgenders. So, all in all, you find that the transgenders are people, and you find three definitions in page 103 under the title transgender. All these three definitions, which you will have to go through, and I'll just read it through. People who feel that the assigned sex at the time of birth based on their genital is a false or incomplete description of themselves. People to whom assigning one sexual identity does not conform unambiguously to conventional notions of male or female gender roles, but combines or moves between these. The third point is people whose sexual identification is difficult to determine due to physically identifiable sex organs. All these people come under the title transgender. As I told you earlier, There are also people who are gender queer. Transvestites means people who cross dress, and androgyne and bigender. All these categories are it was it actually emerged out of feminism, a subcategory of feminism, and later on with a subcategory of lesbian feminism. And later it was associated with LGBT subcultures. But here you find that they were generally perceived, that is, these transgenders were perceived as homosexuals, and trans communities started to articulate their problems mainly through autobiographical narratives and demanded their rights like other sexual minorities. So you find that they thought that they were like the homosexuals, but they were not. They again started moving apart from them, and it is from here that their fight really begins. We have seen the different books that are written by transgenders. They are autobiographical narratives, and also they demand their rights like other sexual minorities. So they are also categorized as sexual minorities, and it is that which really makes them as essentialist part of essentialism. And so they were able to continue fighting and achieve something for themselves. They now moved away from homosexualism because they are not homosexuals. They are just people who had gone through a corrective surgery, or they feel that they are not what they are born as. And so this they do not belong to the category of homosexuals. Even homosexuals also refuse to accept them as such. And all this paved the way for having a group called transgenders and transgenderism as a result of it. And you find from 2006 onwards, there was rapid progress for them, theory wise, and also by the civic society, the acceptance of the society, which is a necessary for them. And so, when you check through the newspapers and also the media, you find them giving voice to their feelings, and the media also gives space for them. Till then it was not recorded there in the media or even in the newspapers or anything, but nowadays you find it often there. And for a long time, maybe for continuously last year or a year before that, they were the focus of the media, not for one day but for several days, for several months. And if there is an occasion, immediately one of them will be called for, and they in turn naturally responded. So they are happy that they are being treated like any other human beings, and that really makes them from the marginalized. They are moved on. They are moving on to the mainstream. So I hope you'll go through the text and that portion transgender and be prepared for the questions. Mind you, the questions are not just from the slides alone, but also from the text. So read the text first along with listening to this video and be prepared for the answers. Thank you.